Hey there, Cletus! How do you circumcise a hillbilly? I don't know, Billy Bob, how do you do it? You kick his sister in the jaw!
When does a cub become a Boy Scout? When he's eaten his first brownie. I was hiking with my girlfriend the other day, and out of the woods came this huge black bear. We must have scared its cubs or something. Came chasing right after us. Good thing I had my 9mm. One shot to my girlfriend's kneecap was all it took, and I could stroll away casually. Now, I don't think it's fair to say Hitler was all bad. I mean, he did kill Hitler after all. One man's trash is another man's treasure. That's a wonderful saying, but a horrible way to find out you were adopted. My ex-girlfriend was in this horrible accident. When the paramedics called to get her blood type, I gave them the wrong one. Now she can experience what real rejection is like. I called this suicide hotline in Iraq, but they got all excited and asked if I could drive a truck. My girlfriend wanted a marriage like out of a fairy tale. I said fair enough. I gave her a loaf of bread and left her in the middle of a forest. If at first you don't succeed, skydiving wasn't for you. What's the difference between me and cancer? My dad didn't beat cancer. Why are priests called father? Because it's far too suspicious if you call them daddy. If you build a man a fire, he'll be warm for a day. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. So one of the questions I get asked a lot on TikTok is how I make my voice do this. And to be very honest, it's just practice. I can go in all kinds of ranges, but the story of how I did that was I used to have, after puberty, I had a very deep voice. At 15, I had my tonsils removed. And the first thing that I said when I could speak again sounded a lot like this. It was so high-pitched, and I'm 15 years old, and that's kind of ridiculous. So I brought it back down to here, and I made sure that I could get it as deep as possible because holy crap, I was not going to sound like this ever again. Especially not by accident. Thank you for listening. So I've been seeing this trend on TikTok about if you haven't dated a certain type of person, an RN, a black person, a white person, a Hispanic person, a doctor, a retail salesman, like if you haven't dated that person, this is what you're missing. Paradise, right? But it's that kind of thought, like, you don't represent, just because you are a thing doesn't mean you represent every one of those things. I'm a salesman, doesn't mean I represent all salesmen. I am a voice actor, doesn't mean I represent all voice actors. I happen to marry my wife, who just so happens to be Hispanic. Not because she's Hispanic, I didn't marry her because I needed tacos and fucking Spanish in my life. I picked her because she was the most attractive person around. Every bit of her was attractive to me. She just happens to be Hispanic. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Pivot Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. He was a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large mustache. Mrs. Dursley was thin and blonde and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences spying on the neighbors. The Dursleys had a small son called Dudley, and in their opinion there was no finer boy anywhere. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but they also had a secret. And their greatest fear was that somebody would discover it. They didn't think. To teach my kids about democracy, I let them vote on dinner. They picked pizza. But we had tacos because they don't live in a swing state. A recent study shows that humans eat more bananas than monkeys. Which makes sense, I don't know anybody that eats monkeys. A man goes into a bar to order himself a bowl of chili. The waitress tells him that the man sitting behind him has eaten the last bowl. The man turns and looks at the guy and sees that he has an entire full bowl of chili, even though he seems to be done eating. He turns to the man and says, "Are you going to eat that?" The man says, "Nah, help yourself." This man takes the bowl and eats the whole thing. But when he gets to the bottom, he hits something hard, and he scooped it out to find that it's a dead mouse. He immediately puked the entire bowl of chili back into the bowl. The man behind him turned around and said, "Yeah, that's about where I got as well."